Hi, I'm Peggy Berryhill, and right now you're looking at the view from station KGUA in Gualala, California. As you can see, we call ourselves public media for the Redwood Coast. Stongo, Chohojifkidos, Peggy Berryhill, Este Muskogaloki. And that simply means, hi, I'm Peggy Berryhill, and I am a Muskogee Indian. I am living in California, and as you saw, I live at the Pacific Ocean in the southern tip of Mendocino County, which is just a beautiful, beautiful place to live. And you got a peek at our little tiny station. Of course, we have an office, we have a few other computers. But I was asked to talk to you about how does a tiny station that's under-resourced handle emergencies. And in our area, we've had two major emergencies in the past 18 months. First, we had these major fires. Many of you heard of the Tubbs fire and the fire that just grew overnight. It was amazing. We heard about that fire because we were looking on Facebook at 6 in the morning, and a friend of ours who lives in Santa Rosa said, well, I've left my house and I'm staying out in Bodega Bay. We didn't think much about it until my partner, who's a land surveyor, left early that morning, about 6:30. We're about an hour north of Bodega Bay, and when she got to Bodega Bay, or when she got to Jenner, actually, there were people sleeping all over the beaches. There were people at every beach from Jenner and in Bodega Bay. They were parked in the little streets in the little town of Bodega, up in the harbor, which is a subdivision. Cars were everywhere, and the smoke in Bodega Bay, the air was thick and gray at 7 in the morning. And so my partner turned right around and came home. She called me and she said, this fire is much more than we know of. So I turned on the TV and the radio and saw that a lot of Santa Rosa was burning. It was terrifying to see. And also the local news in the big cities was giving misinformation, misidentifying buildings, and we didn't have any way at first of knowing, other than the network news, what was happening. So we got on the computer, of course, and we found out that this was a huge, huge fire, and it had spread so fast. It was burning, I forget, it was so fast you couldn't run from it, and it was so intense. So Susan came back to the station, and for the next day, actually for the next 5 days, we stayed on the air from 7 in the morning until 6, stayed at the station, aggregating news and breaking down the news. Now, it's important to know that this fire was so intense that it burned out cell towers, the internet lines were down, and regular phone lines were down. So really radio was the only source of getting information in our local Sonoma County and Mendocino County areas. So our first job was to start aggregating information and separating fact from fiction. And so we found out there were a lot of, as I said earlier, misnomers on streets, on hospitals that the San Francisco Press was saying had burned down, and they hadn't. So that was one thing, separating all the rumors, and there were lots of them. And we had Facebook, we had the internet, we had phone here at the station, and so we made use of that. There were a couple of other local tiny news services that were great. The Mendocino Voice, a print service, we contacted them, and we made sure that we could get as much information as possible out to people. The number one problem, of course, is safety and trying to keep people from going to Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa is a 2-hour drive from here. It's where a lot of us go for big box shopping, if you have to do that, or doctor's appointments. So the station was getting phone calls all day long. Well, I have a doctor's appointment today. Can I go? And we'd say, no, please stay off the road. Do not go. Your doctor will not be there, because all the hospitals had been commandeered as emergency operation services. Doctors were being pulled out from wherever they could to help. And most appointments just were not happening. But everybody thinks that they're different. And we just stayed on the air and said, please stay off the roads. They're needed by emergency services. Your doctor is not in. Whatever it is, it's going to have to wait. This is a message we went on the air with, I don't know, every 10, 15 minutes. Please don't go into town, into Santa Rosa. And you couldn't really go north either. From the north, as you could see, I showed you a little bit of, we're right at the ocean. So the only way to go is east, north, south, or east. Can't go west. And so we were very careful to keep people out of our western part of the county, north and eastern part of the county, because of the fires. They were everywhere. It was terrifying. And within hours, we, even out here at the ocean, were beginning to be inundated with smoke. We also had a lot of refugees here. So our local services did their best job that they could of opening up their doors, everybody just got involved to welcome people here, welcome people from the shelters. So that was 5 days, 13 hours on the air. By the end of the week, I was exhausted because it was mainly me on the air and Susan aggregating information. And then on Tuesday, another volunteer, Sevi, came in. So between the two of them, they were constantly giving me information. The other thing we did as a tiny station is we carried, at that point, the Mendocino County Sheriff's Department and Fire Chief and Sonoma County Sheriff's and Fire Department were giving 4 press conferences a day. So we carried them live. Again, remember, people out here had no cell phone, no internet, no telephone access. And so we did everything we could to keep people up to date with all of the information on road closures, what streets you couldn't go to, and also the people who had fled their homes in what's known as Coffee Park were desperate to get back into their homes, and they couldn't go. They were not allowed in for weeks. So that was our main job during the tremendous, tremendous first week of those fires. We all learned a lot from that. And we also, local community agencies learned how to develop resources to take care of pets who were lost or abandoned. A lot of times in emergencies, your cat or dog might flee. So we did a lot of work there. The second emergency we had here was just a couple of weeks ago. We got more rain than we've had in decades. We went through years of drought. Suddenly, we are inundated with a tremendous amount of rain. The ground got soaked. Trees come down. That means power lines come down. In parts of our Highway 1, north, south, and east, there were areas we couldn't travel through. So you were pretty much marooned here for about 2 days. Not so bad. But when you're not prepared for it, again, people are concerned. I have a doctor's appointment. Well, you're not going to get there. You can't get out north. You can't get out south. You can't get out east. There were mudslides on our east-west roads. So we were, again, constantly telling people, this road, that road were not passable. And when they were passable, after a couple of days, and it stopped raining enough that the creeks that had been flooded were receding, the Russian River overflowed, and that's very sad to see the aftermath of that still today, picking up garbage. People just had to flee their homes, and it was sad. I was driving down River Road the other day, and I saw a baby's crib, and I just couldn't help but wonder what happened to that family and that baby. So that's what you do when you're in a tiny tiny station. Now, there's another very important piece of this that plays a big part of this. We've made really good friends with all the people in the amateur radio clubs. So we call them or they call us. We put out a call to them. Tell us what you're hearing. This was particularly important during the fires because they could tell us where uh, things were out, what roads you couldn't pass when we couldn't hear it any other way. Remember, we were very isolated out here on the coast. We were isolated from the inland part of Sonoma County. We're in Mendocino County. We're on the edge of the ocean. There's nothing between us but basically wilderness. And so we had to rely on other people. So the Amateur Radio Club has become very much a part of our radio station, and we now have an arrangement with them. If there are any other major emergencies, they will come here and man a radio and keep us in touch with everything. So I highly suggest that you get a ham operator's license and the equipment and learn how to use it. When you're just a tiny station like we are, where it's myself and two part-time volunteers, it means I'm going to be here most of the time, so I'm not going to be on the ham radio, so it helps me out. Well, I think I've gone over my time limit here. I want to thank you all for inviting me to this. Hopefully, in the introduction, Frida, who I've known for decades, let you know a little bit about the work that I do. But my most recent work is this radio station. We love our community. Our community loves us. And that's what you do in an emergency when you are under-resourced, underfunded, have no cell phones, no landlines, and no internet. You do the best you can do for your community. And sounds like you're having a great conference. I wish I was there. Thank you.